Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon Sharing Thoughts, the podcast. So, in today's podcast, I'm going to be speaking about, well, I didn't really know what I was going to be speaking about until about 5 seconds ago, but basically, I was invited to a wedding in India. Now, that's a bit of a shock for me to even be able to say out loud, but I think the one amazing and very exciting thing about life is being able to find your person, your one. You know, it's someone that you've spent a lot of time getting to know. You potentially could have gone on a lot of dates. You may have met them through a friend, a dating app, in real life, through a friend, family, cousin. You know, you could have met them at an amazing place in your life, or you could have met them at an entirely awful place of your life. But yeah, I think for me, that's what I'm going to title this video, podcast. Yeah, because I was genuinely invited to a wedding in India, and I think for me, like, as much of a thrill and excitement and happiness that gave me, I think at the same time there's also a lot of being scared, being anxious, not knowing what is on that side of the world. And, you know, for me, in the job that I'm in currently, I wouldn't have been able to take off enough time to be able to actually enjoy that moment. So I think as it currently stood, I was able to take 2 or 3 days off before coming home. So travelling out to India on either the Saturday or the Sunday, getting there on the Monday, doing some kind of pre-wedding stuff and networking and socialising and the rest of it. Obviously the wedding being on the Tuesday, doing the whole of that. Travelling back Wednesday morning, India time, Tuesday night time, India time. Arriving back Wednesday, England time in the morning, and then actually going straight to work on the Wednesday, which just, as much as I wanted to try and make it possible, after realising, well, actually, that's just not possible, because I'm basically spending as much time travelling there as I am actually being there. It didn't really kind of make sense. And, you know, after speaking to some of my family and some of my friends, and actually even some of my work colleagues, you know, I came to the realisation that, flying out for one day, to basically be there for one day, to then basically fly back and go straight to work and be probably, shattered, tired, jet-lagged, you know, it just wouldn't work. So, as much as I wanted to go, it's just not possible. But, you know, I think it's one of those interesting things that as you get older in life, you find who your people are. So whether it's your partner or your best friends, you know, you don't need to find all these people now, like in your 20s, your teens, your 30s. Like, I think the right people will come in your life at the right possible time. And I think for me, I am one of those introvert extroverts. Like, I am very confident. I am very happy within myself. Obviously, there are things that I would change, and there are people that I would bring back into my life, and there's people that I would happily just drop. But I think for me, I always and have always wanted to do the best for myself, to prove other people wrong, to prove, you know, family that I'm actually able to do things, whether it's by myself or with some support and guidance, and also just to make myself as employable as possible. You know, I don't plan on changing my job anytime soon. I genuinely enjoy the job, the company, the team, everything about my job so far, and I have switched positions a couple of times in the last few years. So, you know, just building that experience within operations, within recruitment, within administration, networking, public speaking, teamwork, solo work, traveling a little bit. Like, I don't really travel lots, but I've gone to little places here and there for like events or concerts or work opportunities. And again, that's probably going to be a whole podcast within itself. But I think for me, just being open-minded, being open to meeting new people, and, you know, reconnecting with those people from the past. Because I think for me, one thing I've always told myself, and I've always told the people that I've networked with within those moments, I've said, look, I'm one of those people that talks to people everywhere. I try and network when I feel confident enough in the situation. You know, sometimes I'll go somewhere, I won't feel very social. I might feel a bit left out. I might feel a bit lost. I might feel like I'm a bit less important than the other people in the room, so I won't necessarily network as much or talk to people as much. But if I feel like I'm in a room and I'm as good as the people in the room, or better, or older, I think that's kind of a thing as well. If I'm in a room with older people, I feel like they've got so much more experience and knowledge than me that anything I say would be disregarded, not listened to, and I'm just the young person in the room that doesn't really have a say, really. But, you know, if I'm in a room of like 5-year-olds, or if I was a room with like teachers, or if I'm in a room with, you know, people that are part of a charity or a shop or something where the people you kind of have to be nice and you have to be friendly in those environments, I would feel a little bit more confident. I'm not saying these people are on like any less than me, but I'm just saying because they're in more of a friendly environment, I would be able to be more confident. I think if I was to stand on, you know, the stage at Wembley, I'd absolutely poo myself, you know, obviously if it was crowded. If I was standing at a police station with police all around me, you know, in their uniforms, with their rifles, with their headphones, walkie-talkie speakers, whatever, I would feel very nervous because one thing out of line, boom, you're arrested. In Wembley, one thing out of line, boom, you're going to go viral on social media. There's going to be thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people filming what you're doing in that moment. And unless they ban the phones and the socials for the time you're at that venue, that's going to go viral. So I think there are so many different spaces and there are so many different places where to be confident, you just kind of have to not necessarily know the audience, not like you have to know every single person in the room. You kind of have to know the type of people you're in the room with. You know, what's the phrase they say? Oh, are you the if you're the smartest person in the room, or if you're the brightest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You know, if there's people in that room and every single person is a bit clumsy or a bit ditzy or not confident or whatever, and you're there, you know, trying to give all this energy, trying to go 10-10, trying to, you know, push yourself to the best you can, you're networking with the wrong people, because you should be in a room with people who are your level or higher, senior, managery, you know, people that you can learn off. They can probably still learn bits and bobs from you as well and go, oh, I wish I would have done that when I was, you know, a junior X, Y, and Z person. But you want to be in a room with people that are your level or higher. You want to network with people that are, you know, in more senior jobs, they're earning more money, you know, they're more professional, they're more qualified, they have more experience in the real world. They may be married, they may have kids, they may have a house, you know, things that you aspire to want to do and be as an individual, you want people that have already got it. And that's the only way you can network and be confident and be around people. You have to push yourself out of your comfort zone to make these connections and network with these people. But you want to be able to go, look, when I get to this position, how can I do this? How can I achieve that? How did you get to this position? So I think I'm rambling a little bit, but basically that kind of brings me back to the whole my network situation. I've met hundreds, if not thousands of different people from all the different volunteering opportunities, from when I was at school and I was a senior prefect, when I was a mentor, when I did my Duke of Edinburgh, when I worked for a charity, when I volunteered for that same charity. You know, I've painted walls, I've painted rooms, I've climbed mountains, I've been in music videos with famous people, I've travelled to Germany, I've travelled to Spain, I've travelled to Greece, I've travelled to Switzerland, even places in the UK, Cambridge, London, Brighton, Bristol, Margate, Kent, Liverpool, Leeds. You know, I've been to a lot of places for a lot of different opportunities, and I have met lots of great people, even men. You know, I'll probably do a whole separate podcast about men, but the amount of men that I have met, you know, that makes me sound like, you know, I'm basically just going around like meeting loads of men, but no, just networking and just being able to chat to loads of people with nothing coming out of it. You know, I've got friends from uni, boys I'm still talking to now as friends. You know, a lot of them have partners now, or they have kids, or they're married, or they don't use social media anymore, and all of the rest of it. But even people before university, people I've met online, on dating apps, through social media mainly now, because obviously I don't really do the dating apps anymore. You know, every so often I'll just tap on an app and go, oh, let me just, you know, see if I get a match or a swipe or a connection or whatever. But like I said, most of it's now through social media, because I'm kind of, again, going from one social media to the other and networking with people and going to events where I kind of have to talk to people. But I've said to everyone, every single person that I've met, and I think I've not necessarily said it exactly the same way to everyone, but I've always said, look, I network with a lot of people, but if you ever need me, or if you want me, or if you think we could work on something together, drop me a message, find me on social media, text me on whatever, find my website, do whatever you need to do to find me. And I think that's the key thing. If you want to find me, find me. It's not me going, we have to be friends, we have to connect, we have to, network and be each other's best friends. It's more of a just, in the moment, I really appreciate and like you as an individual. I think you're smart, I think you're confident, I think you're friendly. And, a lot of those friendships are just part-time friendships, as one of my old friends used to say. Again, sometimes people are just there in your life for that moment, for that period. And then once that situation's over, or once that volunteering opportunity is done, or once that part-time Saturday job is over, those people also decide that the friendship is over, or that all that networking that they're done with you and all that talking was kind of just irrelevant, really. But I think that's the thing. Over the years, I have made quite a lot of good, I want to say friends, good friends, best friends. And I used to always hate that term, because every single person that I introduced to my nan, or that I called a best friend, ended up being someone that I no longer remained friends with. So I do use the term best friends quite lightly, but I think with the handful of people that I've genuinely got as my best mates, I think they're people from different walks of life. They've grown up with different type of family households, and some have brothers and sisters, some are lonely children, some live with their, mum and dad and their brothers and sisters, some just live with a mum, some live with a nan, some live on their own. I've got people that are in all different walks of life. Some people that I helped them apply for jobs, or they've done it themselves, or I've been that friend to support them and get them through something, or, been that recommendation, or been that, the reference that they needed for me to get, for them to get that job for themselves. And I've also been to so many different events, exhibitions, projects, things like that, with some of my previous companies. A lot of things by myself where I've just gone, oh, this is an opportunity that sounds interesting. No one's free. No one else wants to go. So I'm just going to go. I think it's that thing of not missing out on things just because everyone else says no, or just because no one else is available. If you want to go to that concert, if you want to go and watch that film, if you want to start that YouTube channel, you do what you want when you want, because you're not hurting anybody. You're just doing what you want to do because nobody else is free or nobody else wants to. Don't hold back. Never hold back, and do everything that you want to do because you want to do it. That's what I tell myself every day. From the first moment where I started making content, taking photos of myself on YouTube and for Instagram, and creating all these weird shows and PowerPoints and things like that, I was a very strange kid growing up. So I was told, but looking back on it now, I was probably the smartest kid that I have ever known. Not necessarily academically A stars in every single subject, but I was very creative. I was editing things very quickly. I can type at 400 miles an hour, sending out emails. My style of email writing has become a lot better than when I first started. I used to put commas in the wrong place, underscore, underlines. All my letters used to be jumbled up. I'm not dyslexic, but I just couldn't spell. And then obviously as the years have gone by, and as I've got more professional and done more experiences, I've kind of learned how to write emails, how to approach people, how to ask for things directly but nicely. You're asking for something, you want feedback on it, but you're not kind of saying it in a rude way or in a jokey way or using haha in like an email. You're actually being professional, asking for what you want, being polite, adding a smiley face, to just, I guess, lower the tone of the email and, go from there. So, yeah, I think networking is one of those amazing opportunities. And this all literally links back to how I first started this podcast, about being invited to an interview, to be invited to a wedding way across the country in India. It's just about meeting people, being your true self, and just being able to network. Because I think this kind of all revolves about the whole ability of being able to network, I've got so many stories. I've got so many different people that I've networked with from all these different opportunities. A lot of them I've posted on things like LinkedIn, on Instagram. I have done some YouTube videos on some of the projects. Obviously on my website, up until 2024, I've literally listed as many of the volunteering and paid opportunities with whatever company, whatever project, whatever university institution as possible. And then from 2024 onwards, that's when I've kind of hoped to just do a social media post or a blog post or a podcast where I just continue talking about the things that I've done in real time, and hopefully inspire other people to also do what they want to do in real time. Yeah, I think I'm very happy where I've got as of now. and like I keep saying, I have met some great people. I think for me, networking has always been important because as a young person, as a young child, growing up through school, I was genuinely just the fat kid. I didn't really have any friends. I didn't really have any friendship groups. I would jump around between different groups, absolutely, but I don't think any of those people were my friends. It was more of just convenience for that moment. You know, group work, it was almost like does he have to be with us? And obviously when I was in the group, I'd be, left out a little bit or teased, or, down the corridor people would say stuff or look at me in a certain way. And, even now I think back and I'm like, I was such a sad and, I don't know how to even phrase it, just unaware of how I was being treated. I look back now and I feel very sorry for myself. If I was friends with my younger self, I would have straight away pulled myself to the side, had a conversation, gone, look, you're better than this. You look how you look, you are how you are. Be brave, be proud of yourself. Things will get better and you will start looking better in the future. But you're smart, you're brave, you're creative, just because you don't look like all the other boys, just because, your physique isn't as great as them and you're not getting all the girls or boys or, whatever else, and just because you're not getting all the amazing grades, it does not make you any less. Because I guess that was even a point within itself, in the changing rooms, getting ready for things like PE or things like that. All the kids are just undressing and dressing as they do. And I was just very self-conscious. I did not know where to look. I didn't want to look anywhere, because if you catch eyes with someone and they think you're looking at them in a weird way, which I never did, I was never interested in anyone in that way. I knew who the good-looking boys were, when I was, in year 8 or 9 or whatever it was. But for me, it was more of just get dressed and undressed as quick as possible because I didn't like the way that I looked. The amount of times I skipped PE as well. I was making out that I was in classes or extracurricular classes and things like that, or I'd go and get lunch early, or I'd just sit under the stairs. That was a high occurrence. I'd forget my PE kit and they'd go and take what's in the lost property. So it'd be just smelly t-shirts, smelly trousers, smelly boots, stuff that I didn't even want to wear. Because there was a few times where one of the teachers would let me get away with not wearing sports kit, so I'd either play in my uniform or I'd be able to just sit and watch, basically. But then there was so many times that I remember one of the teachers, he wasn't horrible. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. He wasn't rude. He wasn't horrible. He was almost just very direct of, stop messing around. This is the subject that you're taking part in. You have to play this game, or you have to play tennis or the football or whatever it was, and you have to wear the uniform like everyone else does. So yeah, I think there was a lot of times where I used to hide under the stairs. So I'd just come out of a meeting, or I'd have come out of some sort of tutoring thing and I'd already be late, or I would get to PE early, so I would literally hide under the stairs, round to the corner where you literally could not see me. And then when everyone had gone outside, because you could hear everyone running around, running down to PE or running up to a different class. Once I heard it go completely quiet, I would walk up the stairs and either go to lunch, or I'd hide somewhere, or I'd go and do some photography, or, I would get as far away from the PE department as possible because it was downstairs. You kind of had your school level, which was the normal level. You had the upstairs, which was kind of like your languages, your English, your maths, your music, things like that, geography, history, art. The normal floor was, again, a bit of maths, a bit of tech, the school canteen, the assembly hall. You had the sixth form area on that floor, and I think you had a bit of science. And then the bottom floor was one way, I think towards the left, was the science corridor. And then if you were to go right, you would get towards citizenship, PSHE, those sorts of classes. And that's where both male and female changing rooms were, with sports halls around that as well. So I kind of knew where everything was, and I was like, right, well, if I don't want to go to PE, there aren't going to be any PE teachers upstairs. I just need to make sure that when I unhide myself, that they're not just kind of sitting there looking or watching or whatever. I think I may have got caught once Well, I kind of ran up the stairs and I had a teacher go, "Oh, Brandon, what are you doing?" "Oh, like, sorry, I'm not feeling well." But yeah, like I said, even then, like they knew I wasn't. They knew I wasn't interested in the sport. They knew I was being teased. They knew 100% that I didn't enjoy the sports. And even now, looking back, I just feel and felt very sorry for myself. In the moment, you don't know, you can't tell, you don't know what's happening, you don't know how you're being treated or how you feel. You just know you're not like everyone else. You don't look the same as everyone else. The boys were great looking, nice looking boys, great physiques. Oh, this one's got a girlfriend, and this one runs 100 miles an hour, and this one's got his curly locks in his hair. Like, they all just looked like models or surfers and, artists and the rest of it. And I was just there like some lump that no one wanted, probably stunk, probably was sweating, just, yeah. And it's just very weird just to look back and think how much I have changed for the better. Even just seeing photos of myself when I was younger, photos with me and my cousin, or photos at school, or photos at prom, or photos at the palace, just looking at those photos just makes me go, oh my goodness, how was I let out of the house looking like that? But that's what evolution is. In the moment you don't know, you don't really care, and then looking back it's like, I don't know how I was able to go out like that, but I'm glad I was, because I'm now the best version of myself as of today, and I will only get better. That's the thing. I have had some, I'm not going to say interesting feedback on how I look, but I have had some comments about, my hair, or the lack of, or my teeth, that I've got a little gap, or that I'm a little bit bigger than I should be, or sometimes I might smell a little bit, or, I'm hairy in some of the wrong places. But, all these things that people say, it's all very intimate, and it's all very subjective, depending on who it's being said from, and obviously it's all to me. But I think I'm at that time in my life where I just don't care now. I know how I look, I know how I can make myself better, I know how to eat healthier, I know how to lose weight. I've got a running machine in my flat. I play tennis once or twice a week. Sometimes I go for a walk, sometimes I go for a run, sometimes I won't do anything, I will just sleep. So I think that's the thing, depending on how I feel, my mood, my motive, whether it's a weekday, whether it's a weekend, I may do more or less sport. It's just kind of in that moment. And again, with all those extracurricular activities I used to do, it allowed me to network, make new friends, make new connections. And again, a lot of these people I don't talk to anymore. They were just very in the moment. I was 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. I remember quite a lot of the extracurricular activities from now as well. Monday was Air Cadets, Tuesday was Drama Club, Wednesdays was Air Cadets again, because I remember that was Monday and Wednesdays. Thursday I think was Swimming Club. Friday I think was Swimming Club as well. Saturday was tennis, I remember that, tennis in the afternoon. Sunday morning was swimming, and then Sunday afternoon I had drums. And I think a load of the other things I had was, French class, Spanish class, art class, dance class, I think, for a very minimal amount of time. Like a kind of sculpture making kind of class, I did a bit of that. Chess club. I did rugby for a little bit, again, got very overwhelmed and got very just worried about being dirty and muddy, and it just wasn't really the sport for me, so that stopped very quickly. Same as boxing. Did boxing for probably a week. And I think it was just the thought that my dad was frightened that I was going to get punched in the face was kind of the reason why I stopped that. Again, it was all very, I did quite a lot as a child and as a young person growing up. I don't think any of it was for things like self-defense or protecting myself, because I was quite good at doing that, and I have thankfully not really ever been in a bad situation like that. Obviously you have the occasional disagreement or argument or fight or whatever, in school everyone has that. If you go through school without a fight, people will make a reason to start on you. So yeah, I was never the perfect kid, I never had the perfect life, and nothing was ever just normal. I don't really like using the word normal, but nothing was ever normal. There was always something weird happening, or some sort of disagreement, argument, fight, whatever. But I'm past that now, thankfully. But yeah, I think I reflect back on all those earlier days in my life, and like I said, throughout my young years, throughout my teenage years, throughout my mid-20s, which obviously I'm still kind of in my 20s now anyway, but when I was at 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, I was still at university or in a gap year or COVID was happening, and I've just networked in so many different ways. Whether you network at a party, you network at a shop, you network at work, networking online, networking just, I don't know, you can network through dating apps, you can network just by walking past someone in the street. That kind of brings me to the whole networking situation with boys and men and stuff like that as well, because I wasn't really sure what I was. Like, this is a bit of an interesting topic, but sexuality. I've always hidden who I was. I've always dimmed or dumbed down what I was, and I'm not going to say that I'm the most feminine, the most camp guy there is out there, because I am most certainly not. If anything, I'm more towards being a straight heterosexual man than I am actually a homosexual man. But yeah, I am gay, surprise, and I am into men. I do fancy guys and things like that, and I've had some encounters with girls and a couple of girlfriends and whatever, but that's not really for me. That's not my world. I see attractive and pretty ladies as attractive pretty ladies. I don't want them getting their bits and pieces out. I don't want to snog, make out, or have a family with a lady. That's just not me, nor my lifestyle. And I think as who I am, I do actually have quite a lot of lady friends, which is great. But I also feel like I should have a lot of guy friends, or, network with more straight men, because, if I'm ever in trouble or if I ever need help, then at least I've got those guys by my side and I don't have to just talk to or call out for the women. I've also got strong men there as well. I'm sure some of the ladies are strong and they would help and they would be great, but it would also be great to have some more, masculine men or straight men, people that they can rely on me as a man to tell them if they look good, how to help them with their situations if they're going through a lady problem or a job problem or a life problem, but then also they can help me as well, and there's that natural understanding of gay guys and straight guys becoming best mates and bonding, not just because you're both guys, but it's like you both respect each other's boundaries, you both respect that you're not into each other, and you can genuinely appreciate that, they may be gorgeous and they may be fit and they may be your perfect type, but they are genuinely just there as a friend, and if anything, they can set you up with one of their mates that may be interested, that obviously swings the other way. So, sorry, I just dropped my pen. But yeah, I think that's the thing with men and dating and things like that. And pride is very important for me. I don't necessarily post all the kind of religion or political stuff. I will watch things and I'll occasionally swing a flag around, but I think for me it's kind of just from an outside perspective, just looking at, look, these are the people that are part of our community. The majority of the people are great. The majority of the people fight for the right things. They speak up for the right things. You get famous people, celebrities, influencers that are also speaking out about things being anti this or not in agreement with rainbow rights and things like that. But you just have that small percentage of people that are still anti. They don't understand it. They don't legalise it. They don't get it. And, it's people that have thoughts and morals from decades ago. But unfortunately, if someone has a mentality and someone has a mindset of being a particular way, you'll never be able to change that. You may be able to discuss with them, what they're doing and what they're thinking isn't 2026 energy. It's 1920s when, no one had rights of anything. But it's like, treating people a certain way because of a stereotype, treating people badly because of a 0.01% of that type of individual acting out or acting a negative way. That's not what you should do. For example, I have lots of people from different cultures, ethnicities, backgrounds, people that sometimes can't actually speak English either, that come to my office or that come to my job, and we help them create their paperwork. We help them put whatever they need through on the system. And, some people don't understand what we're doing. Sometimes they don't even understand what they're doing. I'm like standing there like a lemon, and I don't know why they're standing there like a lemon. It's like they're expecting me to do all the talking. But we have all different sorts of people coming in, going out, bringing things in, dropping things off, collecting things. So it's one of those jobs that, like I said, I'm not going to expose what I do, where I do it. I've got to keep my identity protected as well. But it's a very people orientated job. That's the best way for me to explain it. So, we're going to have all sorts of people coming in and going out, and I'm not going to judge someone because, they're wearing this type of outfit, or they sound a certain way, or they're in this specific type of industry. No, I treat everyone as a human, as you should be, until proven otherwise. Until they do something that's bad or negative or rude or whatever, I'm not going to treat anyone any differently because of how they look, how they are, how they act, how they talk. That's just not me. And I think there's so much negativity in the world. You just need more people that are like me, who just say things as they are. I'm not scared to voice my opinion on non-political, non-religion, and things like that, topics of just normality, things that are not controversial. It might be like the latest film that's come out, the latest album that's come out, the latest job opportunity, or the latest manager that's just been put in a position. So things like that don't really cause too much controversy. That's the sort of things that I'll get involved with, but I keep my mouth very shut or very closed off when it comes to something a bit more complicated, because I have said it before, I have opinions on these things, but I just keep it to myself, because you never know who's listening, you never know who's going to react, you never know who is waiting for that moment just to start a fight or just to start an argument. And I just, someone says, what are your thoughts on da-da-da? No comment. I don't have any thoughts about it, or I'm not really bothered or interested to talk about that topic. Same as things like football. I'm not really into football. I have the two teams that my family support, and if either of them happen to be playing, I may watch, I may support. Obviously, if those two teams play each other, then I'm screwed. But again, it's one of those things. I don't get involved in football talk. I don't need to talk about this team or this individual or that individual, or how this team is doing X, Y, and Z, or how this team do in this league. Because one, I don't really know. Two, it's not really something I understand. And three, you might have people that love and hate different players or different teams, and you might just be thinking that you're saying something generic or just normal or non-judgmental, and then you might have a fan from the opposing team or the fan from that team who you've just said something bad about, who happens to hear you, and then they just start a fight or an argument because you've dissed their team, or you've said something in agreement with the team that they're going against, or that they don't understand or they don't like. So yeah, that's the thing with the football culture as well. It's, again, best to just keep your mouth shut. If you go into a game, you're neutral. If you're sitting on the same team's side that are wearing red, don't wear yellow. Wear the red, pretend you're red, you support yellow. And obviously when you leave the stadium, just put all your merchandise and the outfits and whatever you're wearing away, so at least you just are neutral. Because if you end up on a train by yourself, in your whatever attire, you're on your own. And you never know who's going to be there, with what sort of weapons, or, it could even be drugs or a gang. Like, you don't know, and it's just not worth taking that risk. So that's why I'm very specific in what I do, where I go, who I meet. I don't really want to be going out too much. I will if there is an event going on, or if there's enough people going out. But, as of the last couple of weeks, I've decided, I'm taking a step back. I don't really like going out in where I'm living now. Not because I don't like the area, I just kind of want to keep my home life and my out life different, if that makes sense. So, I don't really like going out in London because it's quite expensive. It's quite difficult to get the last train back or have to pay hundreds for a hotel. It doesn't kind of really work. Brighton, same sort of thing. It's like, it's far enough away that if, I do go away, then I'm away, if that makes sense, from home. But then at the same time, it's just working out, do I stay at a hotel? Do I stay at a friend's house? Don't really know anyone in Brighton, really. I had previous connections, but again, lost all those numbers and stuff since my phone decided to reset itself, which was interesting. Long story short, forgot my phone password quite a few times, got locked out, had my phone reset, lost all my contacts, my photos, my notes, everything, apps. So I took a screenshot. I'd taken a screenshot of what was on my phone anyway, because I never turned my phone off. I just forgot what the password was. And then when I needed to put in the password, I just couldn't remember it. I just could not remember it for the life of me. Even now, I still can't remember exactly what the password was, because I tried so many different times, so many different attempts, and I just couldn't get in. So yeah, that was a fresh start for me. But yeah, and that's the thing with Brighton. Yeah, there are so many places you can quickly just grab a hotel, stay at, or you could go to a club. I think there's a couple of clubs open till like 5-6 o'clock in the morning, and then just grab the first train home. Subway, you can sit in a restaurant. So there are different options. It's just with whichever one's the safest. Are you on your own? Are you with a group? Are you with a group that you trust? You could go swimming. You can go to the sea. You could sit on the beach. You could go to the club. I think there's clubs open till 7-8 o'clock as well. So yeah, you just kind of work out what type of weekend or what type of evening is it going to be, and that allows you to just be able to plan that night out, basically. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many different interesting things about life. I think networking is one of the most important and one of the most interesting. But I keep diversing off of the topic of men because, yeah, like I said, I have met quite a handful of lovely guys. Majority of them were actually from university, believe it or not. Through like the dating apps or the apps that guys use to meet other guys, because it is quite difficult to go up to someone and approach someone and ask someone if they're single, or try and give a sign to their friend that you're interested in them, or ask someone out on a date. I actually did do all of that, and even now in my head I'm like, I've met the person I'm going to marry. I think I've actually already met them. I don't know which of the people, but it's like I look back and I'm the only one that knows how I was in every single one of those situations. So there was a guy in London. He was a lovely guy, Dimitri. Lovely man, Greek guy, really friendly, really lovely, great smile, great laugh. And he'd only lived a couple of minutes around the corner from where I used to live. And yeah, used to go around to his, watch TV, things like that. And then there was one occasion where we were just sitting there chatting, and he was like, "Oh, can I see your ID? Like, do you have an ID? Like, can I see your ID?" And I was like, "No, that's probably a bit weird. Like, I don't really." He's like, "I just want to see how old you are." I was like, "I told you how old I am. I'm 20 or 19 or whatever I was at the time." And yeah, we ended up having like a bit of a play fight, and he ended up trying to look at my ID, but I never ended up showing him my age. I think I was 19 or 20, but yeah. So he was a lovely guy, and again, thought nothing of it. We were just watching TV, we were watching films, and then a couple of weeks went past, and I hadn't heard from him. Hadn't received a message, hadn't received a call, hadn't had a "do you fancy going for a drink" or whatever. Nothing. So I messaged him, and my number had been blocked, and I do not know or do not understand why or what happened there. But I remember going outside because he lived in a block of flats. So I remember going to the bottom of the block of flats and shouting out his name, and I remember him coming to the window and kind of looking, and then just closing the window and walking away. And yeah, I remember I rang the flat once, and I was just like, "Hello?" And he's like, "Who's this?" And I was like, "It's Brandon." And he was like, "Oh, no, I'm not interested anymore." I was like, "Right, okay." So I understood that wasn't going to happen. But again, it was just, that's the thing that I didn't understand from that situation and from many situations to follow, is how can people change so quickly? At this point in my life, I wasn't active in terms of my doing stuff with people. It was more just cuddles and kisses and watching films, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know how to identify myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I think for me, I wasn't lonely. I was just trying to see if I could find someone who I could just connect with, who I could then grow up and grow older with. Like, I think I was just looking for just some company. I'd finished school. I was either living with Nan or living with parents and travelling over to Nan's or whatever it was. And I was just meeting and talking to lots of different people just to kind of get myself through those difficult situations. So yeah, you had him. He was an interesting character. And I think he was kind of the main one really before university. And then when I went off to university, there was all sorts. There was 3 different guys called George. There was 2 guys called Josh. You had a guy called Richard. So he was a teacher, really, really nice guy, you know, very smart. I think he was into like poems and theatre and literature and novels and things like that. He was slightly older, but lovely man, you know. The one time where we met, which was interesting, was from one of the dating apps. So obviously I was kind of scrolling around and walking home back to my flat, and I had these bright red shorts on. So I don't know if I'd just come back from tennis, or if I literally had just worn these sports shorts to go to the gym or to go to uni or wherever it was. Anyway, so I just walked around this corner and I just saw this man. So he looked as if he was following me, but he was on his phone as well. So it's almost like he knew where he was going, so he wasn't following me. So I've gone into my flat and I've looked out the window and I could see him walk past. So he wasn't walking towards me, he just happened to continue walking up on the road, and I thought nothing of it. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Anyway, I've then received a message, and this individual just said, hey. And I was like, hey. And he was like, were you the guy wearing the sexy red hot pants? And I was like, I wouldn't say they're sexy, and I wouldn't say that they're like tight or hot or whatever, but yeah, I guess that was me. He was like, oh, I was the guy that was walking behind you. And I was like, okay, well, that's a bit creepy. And he went, no, not in that way. Like, I was just walking back to the school, because he worked at one of the schools. I think he was just off for lunch or whatever it was. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. So we ended up going for a coffee, I think the following day, because he was working, and obviously I just got back and was doing uni work. And he was like, yeah, like, I'm really sorry if that was a bit weird, if that was a bit awkward, but, you know, I wanted to say hi, and I wanted you to know who I was, and that I was actually a nice person. I was like, okay, well, that's good. And I think hearing that just made me feel a little bit more relieved as well, because I think with all these dating apps and hookup apps and all the sorts of ways you can meet people digitally and online, sometimes you don't know who you're talking to. Sometimes you do. Most of the time you don't, but sometimes you do. But it's that thing of, like, you know, sometimes it is great to meet people and, you know, you have this really great conversation, and it usually either goes one of three ways. You either have a great conversation, they then send you a face photo, and you're not interested. So it was going really, really well, and then they're just not what you're looking for. Or the other way around, you're having a great conversation, you see them and go, oh, wow. They see you and go, oh, not my type. So it's like, they're your perfect match, but you're not theirs, so that doesn't work. Or you end up meeting a couple of times, you know, you go for a drink, you go for a walk, you go for whatever, and you kind of actually hit it off for a little bit, and then it dies out. So either way, all three of those situations are bad. Either you're not interested in them after a great chat, they're not interested in you and they are stunning, or you do get on, you do, you know, go for some drinks, some coffees and whatever else, and then it kind of just fades out. So, yeah, I mean, there was a couple of guys called Matthew. There was one guy called Matt, and he was a photographer. I actually don't know where he is now. I mean, he was beautiful, blonde hair, you know, cute little guy. And yeah, I think we were at the pub. I was with a group of my friends, and I think he happened to be there because he knew people, or it was just a regular place for the young people to go in town. And there was actually two guys called Matt at the same time. So him, and then the other guy called Matt, who again I ended up hanging out with and getting to know a little bit better. But that's just a whole different story. Well, actually, I might as well explain it. Let's go. So yeah, so this photographer Matt, he was one of the Matts who I didn't actually know the name of until this particular evening, and the other Matt was Matt that I met through a Pride Society at the university. And the story with him is that we were having like a housewarming party at my flat, where we'd invited, I think, 15 or 20 of the Pride Society people, and I'd invited these two other people, one guy called Matt and one guy called Ben. And I said to my two flatmates at the time, Rhiannon and Callum, I was like, look, I've got these two guys coming round. My situation is they're both decent looking. I really, really, really want to get to know one and, you know, just get to know them a little bit more, and maybe, you know, kiss them or cuddle them or whatever. And the other one I'm going to completely friend zone, because I know they're best friends, and it's almost like the friends rule of, like, you don't just go around the whole group. You if you want to date one of the friends, everyone else is then out of bounds and out of office. So yeah, that's what I basically said. I said, look, one of these two I'm going to try it with, get to know, maybe kiss, cuddle, whatever, and then the other one is going to be completely friend zoned. So Ben became the one I friend zoned, and I'm now best friends with him. So he's quiet, but he's been an absolute rock since 2018 when I first met him, with a little hickey on his neck. And yeah, Matt, obviously we did whatever, and yeah, we stayed friends for a little bit. I did help him with a couple of his media projects and editing and filming and things like that, and he's still a great guy. I think he's now into drag and things like that, but again, he was a lovely guy. But anyway, so that's the situation with Ben and Matt. But at the gay bar that we were at, or I think it was a pub actually, so it was the gay pub, we were just sitting, and someone, yeah, I think I just called out Matt, and both Matts turned around, photography Matt and the Matt that I knew previously. So obviously with the second Matt that looked around, I said, "Oh, are you Matt as well?" And he went, yeah, I'm Matt. And I was like, "Oh, I'm Brandon, nice to meet you." And I was like, "Oh, what do you do?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm a photographer, I study this and this, and I'm also from town." And I was like, "I have no idea who you were, but I didn't realise your name was Matt as well." So anyway, the other Matt kind of was talking to everyone else, and yeah, I became quite good friends with the photography Matt. We ended up doing a couple of photo shoots as well. I remember the day completely like the back of my hand. I had my red fake nails on. I had a red jumper on, and I think I had a red and black outfit. Like, I looked the part. I looked incredible. And throughout the day, we probably did a couple of hundred of photos in all different venues and locations and things like that. And what I remember is, at that moment, towards the end of the day, I should have said, "Look, I want all the raw photos. So let's take my SD card out of my camera, put your SD card in my camera, and then I could send all the photos to myself." Yeah. But no, I decided to leave and to wait for him to send all the photos over to me. And again, it just went silent. Didn't hear from him. He didn't reply to my texts. He didn't reply to my Instagram messages. So he just kind of completely left me on, well, not even unread. Like, he read my messages and did not reply. Anyway, went to an event and he happened to be there, so I kind of just went over to him and said, "Look, I don't understand what the issue is. I don't want to cause any drama. I just don't understand why you're not replying to my messages. Like, where's the photos, and like, are we okay?" And he said, "Well, the reason I'm not replying is because I actually don't have those photos anymore. I lost them all." And I think he was doing a photography. He was doing some sort of photography at a different project. So I just joked and was like, "Oh, hopefully you don't lose these photos as well." I was like, "How did you manage to do that?" And he just said he accidentally cleared the SIM card and the rest of it. So yeah, I think it was one of those very down moments for me, because obviously I'd done a lot of posing. I think we'd basically spent about 4 hours going to different places in Nottingham and, taking all these photos. I sorted my hair out. I, got all my outfit on. I actually looked incredible. We got videos, photos, the lot. And then, yeah, for some reason, either he decided to delete it or he accidentally lost the photos. Either way, I didn't hear from him after that at all, apart from obviously seeing him at that event. And then I was just kind of like, okay, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, you could have just told me you lost the photos and it would have been a bit of a less of a blow. Or, like, obviously, I did say to him, I said, "Look, if we actually ever do a photo shoot again, at the end of the day, let's just swap SIM cards or SD cards. I can then just download the stuff from my camera to my phone, so at least I've got the raw stuff. You can go ahead and edit and do whatever you want with the photos, but at least I've then got the photos, if that makes sense. So at least no one's lost the stuff. And if he does manage to lose it, I can always share it over to him." So yeah, again, he was an interesting character. I will never forget him, and it was just, like I said, probably one of the most annoying moments of my life, because yeah, I had my nails on, I had the jumper on, I think I had some sort of like red, it was like a hairband or a hat or whatever it was. I was all red and black, and yeah, it took 5-6 hours and just lost it all in about the space of 5 minutes. But yeah, that was interesting. There was also a guy called George. So like I said, there was one of 5 different guys called George. So there was George, who was friends with one of my Estonian friends. He was a nice guy. I think he was just a bit too posh for me, so that's why that didn't really work out. There was another guy called George. I think his name was George. He had curly hair. So I actually met him after going to some sort of carnival or some sort of event or whatever it was. So we went out for food, and then we went back to his, and then I think we went back out again, and then back to his again. And yeah, he was really an interesting character. You know, nothing like I've ever met before. Very interesting looking, but he was almost like, he kind of looked a bit like the child catcher, but just a younger version, which obviously doesn't sound great because you don't really want to be compared to a character like that. He had a normal nose. He didn't have like a crooked nose or anything. But he was a lovely guy, very excited, very happy, very energetic. He paid for our meal. He paid for my drinks. But yeah, again, that kind of didn't end well because the next day I didn't realise that we'd both kind of left marks on each other, like a little hickey or whatever it was. You know, that's what young people used to do. And he was like, "Oh, I had to go to uni and no, I didn't realise I had this mark and you've left a mark." And I was like, "And you left a mark on me." And so we never saw each other again, and he blocked me, and that was that done. And then, you know, I think the one that I will remember and be upset by the most was a guy called Tom. So firstly, my best mate Ben, he has a brother called Tom who looks great. So that kind of, you know, I think Tom is just a very unlucky name for me because you get a lot of good looking guys called Tom. But anyway, this guy called Tom, from uni, like I said, just for me, I think he would have been the perfect one. He would have been the perfect guy for me because I don't think he was fully gay, or if he was kind of similar to me where he was quite masculine. But yeah, we met in a very interesting way as well. Very simple way, to be fair. I was out clubbing at the gay club with my lady friend. He was obviously out clubbing with his lady friend. And at first I thought that they were a boyfriend and girlfriend or potentially brother and sister. Anyway, I've gone off to the toilet and I let my lady friend do the wingman in. So she spoke to his lady friend and it turns out that she was just his best mate. And obviously my mate was obviously my best mate. So yeah, the four of us all started dancing and he then like took me outside to the smoking area. It was basically empty. I think we'd only been at the club for about 10 minutes by this point, but I just, you know, when you look across the room and you just see someone, I don't really have that a lot, and I think I've only had that like twice. So this was one of those two times where I just caught eyes and I was like, oh wow. So yeah, saw the eyes, he was smiling, so obviously I've gone over, he's taken me outside to chat in the smoking area, and within 5 minutes we basically started snogging, which was yeah, quite a surprise. I think I had drunk quite a lot as well, and I think he did as well. But yeah, what I actually found out is that he thought I was basically sober, and he was like, if I would have known you were that drunk, I wouldn't have invited you back to my flat. I didn't know how bad I was. I was bad. Like I was alright. Like in the end, I wasn't sick. I wasn't hungover. I wasn't anything like that. But the way I was and the way my head felt, I felt like my head was going to fall off. But anyway. So we were sitting outside, snogging. I remember my friend coming out saying, "Oh, Brandon, do you fancy doing da-da-da?" And then she went, "Oh, never mind. Looks like Brandon's busy." I just started laughing. I just remember that in the back of my head because obviously I was busy and my eyes were closed, but I still had my ears open and I was like, "Oh God!" I was like, "This is so embarrassing. There's actually people watching me now." So yeah, that was quite interesting. And then yeah, he invited me back. I texted my mate to just let her know that I was back somewhere. He only lived 2 minutes from town, so it's not like we actually had to walk too far. And then yeah, I think I ended up, I can't remember if I ended up staying over or if I just stayed really late and then had to leave to then get a cab back. But I remember as I left his room, after a very interesting I'm not even going to talk about it, very interesting conversation, yeah, I tried to like tiptoe to the front door. And I remember there was a girl that came out of one of the bedrooms and she was like, "Well, I've heard you now. You might as well come and say hello." So I literally, because I couldn't open the front door. This door was so complicated to open. He was obviously still in his room and he must have just lived with a bunch of girls, or maybe some girls and a couple of straight guys. But it was just like it kind of was like halls, but there was like 5 different rooms, if that makes sense. 3 of the doors were closed and it was just her that came out. So she started smiling. She was in her pajamas and she was like, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." And I was like, "Nice to meet you too." I was like, "Do you have a hairbrush?" That's the first thing I asked for, a hairbrush. So he was standing there laughing. And there was another guy just standing there having a little giggle. And then, yeah, I was like, okay, I gotta go home. So anyway, I went home. We were meeting each other like every week. He'd come around to my flat. I'd make him sandwiches. We'd sit, we'd chat. We watched a couple of films, all of it. It was almost like we were dating, but without the label, which was really nice. And then, yeah, for some reason, again, it just switched. It just changed. So I had a couple of his friends approach me on campus, a couple of the girls, and they were like, oh my God, like, he really liked you, but he's lost interest now because you weren't giving him attention, or you didn't tell him what you wanted. And I literally was like, I don't understand. I genuinely liked him. And they were like, oh, well, it's almost too late now because he's lost interest. I was like, right, okay. So didn't really understand that, because you would have thought the friends would have come to me and told me he was interested, or that he would have told me himself. So didn't really understand that. Again, I wasn't really sure whether to believe that or not either. So I did keep trying to pursue it. And then ended up back at the gay club, I think, several weeks later. And he ended up making out with one of my other best mates. So I was kind of like, right, well, that's weird. And then, obviously, I still tried to speak to him a little bit and see how he was. And I remember I was sitting in the booth with one of my friends, and that same best friend, actually. And I remember I caught his eye, but he did not look happy this time. And he came straight over, started pointing fingers in my face, just saying, this is never gonna work. This is never gonna happen. Stop trying to message me. Stop trying to whatever. Da 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 da. And I think at this point one of the girls had an incident happen. So obviously he went off with her to try and make sure she was alright. So yeah, he basically just stormed out, and yeah, never saw or spoke to him again. Which again, I still don't understand to this day. I'm still very confused how that ever happened. How this individual just switched on me. Okay, I don't get why he kissed my mate as well. I kind of let that one slide a little bit, but I did have words with my friend. But yeah, I don't know how he switched, or how he went from kind of liking me and giving signs that he was interested, or maybe just wanted to be friends, to then kind of putting his fingers in my face, telling me not to contact him or talk to him again, and telling me it was never going to work. Anyway, months went, no contact. I was just sitting on campus talking about him, and then all of a sudden he just appeared out of nowhere at the door, all the way over the other side of the room. Obviously, I've seen him and I just froze, because I didn't know what to do, didn't know what to say. He didn't look at me, he didn't see me, but I saw him, and my best mate and a couple of the other people saw him, and they were like, oh, you can do so much better. And I was like, no, but to me, like, he was genuinely a lovely guy, friendly. And even now, I wish nothing but the best for this individual. I don't know if he's got a boyfriend or a partner. I think he's got his own place now. He lives with a few friends, but it's one of those things that I'm not going to chase. There are so many people in this world, and so many lovely people in this world, that there's no point just chasing one who clearly has shown that they're not interested anymore. So yeah, we even went for a date. I think we went for Pizza Express or Prezzo's or whatever it was. The end, we just split everything half and half because neither of us drank anything. And then, yeah, again, as we left, I think he was just like, yeah, like, whatever this is, I don't think it's going to go any further, or I'm not really interested in you in that way. So I'd rather just like stick as friends or mutuals or whatever it was. Again, I'm not sure where in the timeline that was, whether that was towards the kind of beginning or after we'd been on so many dates or nights out or whatever together. But yeah, like I said, that was probably for me, that was probably the saddest of all of the situations. Like I said, most of the nights out that I was on as a student, I was single. I wasn't looking for anyone or anything. I was actually enjoying spending time with my friends, but there were so many messy nights where previous people that I'd talked to were snogging someone else, so that was those two out of the picture. People that I'd gone on a couple of dates with, who it was moving somewhere very slowly, but moving. They were kissing other people, so I was like, right, that's that over. I didn't give people second chances. Once they screwed me over, I was like, right, I deserve better. And that's when I kind of realised, when I was at uni, that I am a lot stronger and a lot more powerful and a lot better than I thought I was. Compared to my school days, no one wanted to date me, no one wanted to take me for a drink, no one wanted to really hang out, apart from the people that were forced to, or the people that I kind of ended up just falling into the friendship group for. But yeah, at university I made so many good friends. I mean, I don't really talk to a lot of them now because they were just friends whilst being at uni, for group work and presentations and things like that. But, you know, there is still a handful of people I talk to. Obviously, none of the boys, just because, you know, that's just standard in the gay world, unfortunately. That you meet people, you go on a few dates, someone gets bored, someone becomes not interested, and then both parties just end up not talking to each other. But again, it's still important in terms of the networking. For me, it was building my confidence. You know, being on these apps, being able to find people so quickly and match and connect and swipe. For me, it wasn't I want to become like a king of the world, or, you know, sleep with the most people. For me, it was just, I just want to network with people. I just wanted to meet people as organically as possible, you know, in all different walks of life. Again, it goes back to that theme of, I just wanted to meet anyone and everyone. I didn't want to have, you know, just white friends or just Greek friends. I wanted to meet all types of people, because that's the whole reason of going to university, because you want to meet people that you have never met before and people that you would have never have met from going to university. And also I took a gap year as well, so I was that 1 year older than this whole friendship group and, you know, all the people that I was networking with. But there were also some people that had taken gap years as well, so I wasn't the only one. But it was a nice bunch of people. You know, the people on my course were absolutely great, the people in my department were absolutely great, the mentors, the lecturers, the guest speakers, all sorts of things and all sorts of people that I was getting involved with. You know, not one person was bad. Everyone, you know, does things differently, and they understand people differently, or they want to do X, Y, and Z, or they don't want to do X, Y, and Z, or they act a certain way or say certain things. But not one person, I don't think, had a bad heart. It was just that people had to just work out if they aligned with someone's morals, if they got on with someone as a friend, or if it was just better to kind of stay away because they were just a different type of character, different personality, didn't quite match, potentially clashed. So yeah, that was kind of, for me, that was what the 3 years of university were. It was do the course, loads of essays I didn't enjoy, loads of creative stuff which was great, loads of teamwork which I ended up taking on most of the teamwork stuff myself. You know, working in a group of 6 and 3 people pull their weight. It's not great, but you manage to get credit for the other 3 by pulling everyone through. Or a team of 4, there was like 2 of us pulling our weight, and, you know, so it's just one of those things that I've always been in a group for the group, whereas there are other people that kind of just sit and let people do the work. But yeah, at primary school, secondary school, I was the one that was sitting at the back. I was on timekeeping, like ready for this thing to be over. And then as I gradually got older, I was like, well, hang on, if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it. I'm the one that's got the ideas. I'm the one that's got the energy. I'm the one that's got the motivations. I have to be the one that does the idea or that gets the ball rolling. Otherwise, we'll just end up sitting here with a blank page for the next 7 hours. So, yeah, that was university. Very interesting time. And then I guess as of recently, with the whole networking thing, I have gone to quite a lot of amazing events. You know, been to a few more Pride events, gone to a couple of music events, I've gone to some games nights, been invited to some games nights, and, you know, obviously this wedding. But at the end of the day, it's just, I've just learnt how to just focus on the now. You know, there are great things that have happened in the past, and there are great things that are yet to come in the future, but I've just learnt to think, today is whatever day, this is what's coming up in the next week, this is what's coming up in the next couple of weeks, this is what I did last week, and just trying to enjoy things, you know, not thinking, oh, I wish I could do this, or I wish I had that, or I wish I could invite this person to this event. It's like, no, everything happens for a reason. Every single thing in your life happens for a reason. The people that you meet, the opportunities that you have, the projects that you work on or don't work on, the social media apps that you have or don't have, you know, the jobs that you progress in and the jobs that you don't. Like, everything that you have in your life and that you do happens for a reason. So I think for me, that's one of the reasons that I decided podcasting again, because, you know, this podcast is over an hour long. I would probably not be able to have a conversation with someone for an hour. So it's almost like I'm just talking to myself and a load of people just happen to listen to it. So yeah, that's the thing for me, and that's the thing with me. I can talk for England. I'd probably be a great politician. It's just, that's not the world I want to be in. I'd rather just talk for myself, to myself, and just see who listens, who resonates with what I say. You know, I could be brought onto a podcast. I could, you know, be endorsed to have my podcast. You know, someone could reach out to me and go, oh, I really like what you said at this time in your podcast. Like, there could be people that timestamp me. They might go, oh, at 46 minutes and 28 seconds you said this, and this was really interesting because da-da-da-da. So for me, it's just posting because I want to post, talking because I want to talk, getting my thoughts and opinions out there because I want to get my thoughts and opinions out there. There is no motive, there is no secondary idea, there is no other, reason why I'm doing this. I don't really care about the money. Money would be great because it then shows that I'm doing something that I enjoy, that's very easy for me. I'm just sitting, talking and being open and friendly, and people are enjoying that, hence money coming in. But that would all be reinvested back into my content, whether it be sorting out some new camera equipment or a new microphone or definitely a new computer. This computer is great, but I've had it since 2018 now, so it's 8 years old, so it's on the way out. It's just not on the way out just yet. It's still got some life in it, but for example, I can't use the laptop without the laptop being charged. So as soon as I take the plug out, that laptop will die, which is not great. But yeah, I think this is a very interesting, an interesting podcast. And yeah, speaking about laptops dying is not great, but it's almost like this podcast is about to die because yeah, we're about to wrap up this episode. But yeah, I think for me, if I just kind of end on like my final thought or like my thought of the evening, because it's basically midnight now, networking is amazing, meeting people is fantastic, and even just with some of the stories I've given you about Tom, Matt, Ben, Dimitri, people that I've met over the years, not bad people, all completely different walks of life, all ended and all started in completely different ways. Obviously I'm never going to expose these people in full. I'm never going to talk about people's personal lives if they don't really want to talk about it. Like, these are people that you're probably never going to know. I'm probably never going to see them again. They're only known by first names, and I probably will write songs about some of these people, albums, poems, maybe a blog post, who knows. I just think for me it's like I'm not stuck in the past. I'm kind of using my past to tell me what my future is going to be, or reminiscing on those amazing times I've had with these people, or these great opportunities, or these great men. It's basically what Taylor Swift does. She writes about all the bad experiences that she's had and all the different ex-boyfriends or situationships that she may have been in. But she's reflecting on those, going, well, actually, I've now found the man of my dreams. Not just because I've written all these sad and depressing songs, but it's almost like all those negative thoughts and all that negative energy she's put into those songs have just made her that more of a powerful woman that she is today. So it's one of those things. She is Marmite. You either love her or you don't. And it's the same as, the situation of growing up, networking. You either love people, you get on with them really well, they become your lifelong friends forever, or they're people that you're part-time with, as friends or colleagues or situationship individuals, and then it just kind of dies out and becomes nothing. So yeah, I think that's probably my takeaway thought, that network with as many people as you can, no matter how old or how young you are. Just chat to people, just network, do some work experience, do some volunteering, because as little and as unimportant as you may think it is now, having volunteering, having work experience, having unpaid work, having the ability to network, the ability to public talk, the ability to apply for 300 jobs in the space of a week, that's all great stuff, and it will set you apart from other people. A lot of people have Duke of Edinburgh, bronze, silver and gold. A lot of people have started a podcast. A lot of people have TikTok. You want to do something that either people don't know still exists, or along with everything else standard that you may have, you do something different. You bring something different to the table. So whether that's for a job, whether that's for a relationship, whether that's for a TV show, whether that's just to impress your family, you might just have family that want to see you get married, that want to see you be happy, want to see you succeed. So if you're able to do that by just being the best version of yourself, then what else can people ask for? So yeah, my kind of aim, I'm 28 at the moment, and we're kind of reaching the end of May, beginning of June, but the end of June, beginning of July. But for me, I think the most important thing in my life is just being happy. I'll share my thoughts, I'll share my opinions, I will share, how I feel about things, and, I will be pre-filming a lot of content, and that's just the way that I do my content. I don't want to be filming something, recording something, editing it right now, putting it out tomorrow. Like, that's not who I am. I'm not a 24-hour individual. You know, I've got a working week that I have to deal with. I have working, you know, weekends doing my like reselling and selling and getting rid of stock and sending parcels and ordering parcels and dealing with birthday presents and whatever else. So, you know, my week is genuinely busy. You know, Monday to Friday is work. Saturday and Sunday is either tennis or networking, going for dinner, going for drinks, going to see Nana or Auntie or Uncle or whoever else is available. So I don't have time to just sit around, be negative and have no energy. I have to just be, and I have to just do what is needed. So yeah, that is what I will do. That's what I have always done, and that is what I will continue to do. So yeah, that is it for this podcast episode. Like I said, very interesting episode. And I think for me, the most interesting thing is how I started talking about one thing, divulged into a different topic, and then completely ended up on a tangent for about an hour. But that's what is so good about these podcasts. I have a thought, I'm talking freely, no script, no notes, no nothing. And then I just end up going into this other world where I just make things up, and I'm able to tell stories or little anecdotes about, you know, people that I've met, places that I've been to, events that I've been lucky to attend. So yeah, that's kind of it really. I mean, like I said, so many other men I could talk about, so many other jobs I could talk about, so many other experiences, but that's kind of I want to say that's like a little snippet into my personal life, rather than going too far and telling you every single person I've dated, or every single person I've met, or every single person I've kissed and, you know, played games and stuff with on the TV. It's just little snippets here and there. Like, there's even other people that I'm thinking now in my head, like, I haven't spoken about this person, I haven't spoken about that person, I haven't spoken about this person, but, you know, not everyone needs to be spoken about, and sometimes some stories are better kept quiet and only told to friends. So yeah, that's how some of those stories are going to stay. But if you did enjoy this podcast, and if you did enjoy this kind of random ramble, then yeah, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Let me know down below, have you ever had a situation similar to any of the boys that I've explained or talked about in this podcast? You know, about you have a conversation, you got on really well, and then you get friend zoned, or you get declined, or you get shadowed, or you get ignored. Yeah, what advice would you give to someone, I guess, that's going through the sort of same situation? But yeah, other than that, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to do all the like, comment, share and subscribe stuff. Leave me some comments down below, some likes and some recommendations for other podcasts. And until then, thank you very much for listening. And yeah, have a lovely rest of your morning, afternoon or evening. And goodbye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.